My name's Yetta Jager, and I'd like to welcome you here, whether you're here in person or whether you're on YouTube, whether you're here now or whether you'll be watching this in the future. Welcome. We welcome everybody, regardless of your theological persuasions or interests, your demography, your gender, orientation, whatever. You are welcome here. Please stay after this service today for coffee, tea, snacks, and a lively conversation or two. There will also be a potluck after the service. This is Potluck Sunday, so even if you haven't remembered to bring anything, there's always plenty of food, and we welcome you to stay. In addition, there will be a spiritual discussions group meeting during the potluck. Is there anything I need to tell them about that? Okay.
It's a mystery discussion.
It's a mystery discussion. So there are some announcements in your order of service that you can read, but there's one that I'd like to highlight, and that is that Tennessee Tree Day in Farragut will need your help this year. I don't know if you remember our efforts to distribute trees to reduce our carbon footprint here in Farragut last year, but this year it will be held at McPhee Park in Farragut on March 15th, and there's some opportunities from on the 14th to help prepare those orders. So if you're interested in that, please let Jerry Thornton, who's standing in the back, know, and or you can just contact Mark Shipley. And I think that's it for right now.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I am Reverend Carol Badeau. I'm privileged to serve here as minister. I want to welcome you, as Yetta has done. I want to echo that. If you are with us virtually, whether in this moment or at some point in the future, you are part of this community, and we are glad you're here. If this is your first time here, or maybe your second time, we're really glad to see you. Please do stay with us for Potluck. It's a great opportunity to get to know people. I want to give you a little information about another announcement that is not in your order of service. We have the wonderful experience here at Westside of all kinds of new, long-term, ongoing other organizations and groups that are sharing our space with us. So this is something many of you might know about. We have had a Hindu group that shares our space with us. They've been here since, I think, 2014, Brad? 2014. A decade now. We have a Hindu group that uses our space for their observances. And we also have a new group, Christian Home Church, that is using our space on Sunday evenings for their services. And we have our homeschool group that is here during the week. So Westside is becoming a place where people of all different traditions and purposes for coming together are getting to share our space with us, which is actually really a privilege. And the board and I agreed recently to start having real conversations with these groups, to start building relationships with them. So that's something to be paying attention to. We are really trying to cultivate deep connections in our community. And an opportunity for all of you to participate in some of this. The East Tennessee Asian Culture Center is now going to be offering some free classes here. So through March and April, there are a number of events that are happening. Brad's got the list up there, and there are some flyers in the back. But, you can participate in these classes, learning basic Chinese, or coming to celebrate the Lunar New Year, making dumplings, making tea, Lantern Festival. These things you can register for using the QR code, but these are things that we're all welcome to join in on, and it's a great opportunity for us. We met with the leaders of the Hindu group the other day, and they said everyone's welcome to come and participate in their celebrations. So just know that this is a place where there's a lot going on besides what happens on Sunday mornings, and it's a great opportunity for us to connect with our community. So today we're going to be talking about all the ways that Unitarian Universalists across the nation, actually across the world, are doing things to make the world a more just place. So in a moment, I'm going to invite the bowl to sound. I don't know what I'd like to invite you to do as the bowl sings this morning is just ask yourself, what is the most important value to me? You might have more than one, you might have many, but our core values are what bring us into this building. They are what bring us out of our cozy, comfortable homes on a weekend. They are what cause us to take the risks of being in relationship with other people and coming into community. So as the bowl sounds, I just invite you to ask yourself, what are the one or two things that are most important to you?
We will now light the chalice. Sankofa is a concept from the Akan tribe of Ghana that encourages people to learn from the past while they look toward and inform the future. And it has a symbol that's a little bird with its head looking back, and it's holding an egg, with the egg symbolizes moving toward the future. As we look back, our country, you could argue, was founded on injustice. But in the time since then, we've made so much progress in bending the arc toward justice. And there were many courageous activists that created points at which there were big jumps in moving toward justice. And one of those was Rosa Parks, who 70 years ago, after the death of Emmett Till, I hope everybody remembers who Emmett Till was, yes, no? And she decided that she was not going to move to the back of the bus because she was black. And in a poem that Knoxville native Nikki Giovanni wrote, she said, "When she shone a light on the evil of the system, the sun came and rested on her shoulders, bringing the heat and the light of truth." So today we light a candle of joy for the activists that have helped to widen the circle. May we hold tight the progress we've made toward justice and give us the courage to shine light where it is still needed. We also light a candle of concern for the lands and people in those lands whose natural resources are threatened either by military forces, an invasion, or by economic coercion. This candle looks back to celebrate freedom and self-determination, and it looks forward to wish those values can be realized for other countries as well as we move into the future. And now, we're going to be doing an experiment. We're doing some special music, but this is not a performance piece, even though the choir is going to help lead us. The UUA has a justice choir, and it's provided resources for us that are, we don't have to worry about copyright or anything. And these are intended for us to use when we're in marches, when we're being activists, when we're on the mall in DC, or when we're down at Market Square. So, you're not going to have a piano. You're not going to have all these tools that you might have in a usual church setting. So this might take you a little bit out of your comfort zone, but if you feel that you can or that you would like to, we would ask you to move toward the closest aisle. And this is going to be very short, so I don't think you'll have too much trouble with it. And we're going to sing a song called Resilience that's out of that songbook. And it's...
People feel brave. Find a space where you can stand and move. You can do it in your spot too, but you'll feel brave.
So what we'll do is first I will do a call and response just to learn the words, and hopefully I will learn them as well. And then we'll start to sing it. We'll sing it 5 times through, ending on resilience, okay? And the main thing about this is that we are marching while we do this, okay? So, we'll start the marching later, but right now we'll sing Resilience, we are millions, we are strong. We are strong. Shoulder to shoulder, we're moving on. Shoulder to shoulder, keep moving. Make a new plan. Make a new plan. Stand up again and say, yes, we can. Stand up again and say, yes, we can. 1, 2, 3. March your feet. Resilience. We are strong. Shoulder to shoulder, we're moving on. Resilience. Make a new plan. Stand up again and say, yes, we can. Resilience. We are strong. Shoulder to shoulder, we're moving on. Resilience. Make a new plan. Stand up again and say, yes, we can. Resilience. We are strong. Shoulder to shoulder, we're moving on. Resilience. Make a new plan. Stand up again and say, yes, we can. Resilience. Thank you.
That was pretty good. You guys were brave. So now that we've done our stomping, if there are any kids here today, if Leslie wants to raise her hand, Leslie has something ready in the back for the kids. If there are any kids who want to go back, she's got some activities and some learning ready just for the kids. So this is your chance to go do that, for anyone who wants to go do that. So thanks, you guys, for doing that. So today we are talking about a kind of resilience, which is what it takes to keep doing the work of creating justice. Is anybody a little bit tired?
Yeah, just been stomping all around.
You're tired from stomping, yes. Is anybody else tired from feeling like they've been stomping out fires culturally for a minute? So this is hard work. No change, as Yetta said, Rosa Parks, Rosa Parks responded to a tragic event. The work of making the world a more just place is not work that is easy. It is not work that is always fun. It can be deeply joyful and deeply rewarding, but it can also be pretty darn exhausting. So one of the ways we make it better, that we make it easier on all of us, is by sharing the load, by doing it collectively. So the point of today's service is to talk about how we collectively can support each other and beyond just this congregation into the larger Unitarian Universalist world. So our denomination, the center of our denomination, is an organization called the Unitarian Universalist Association. And the Unitarian Universalist Association is an international organization. We are primarily in the United States and Canada, but there are Unitarian and Universalist congregations in other parts of the world. And so UUs all over are all trying to live the same values. And everybody gets tired. So our goal today is to learn just a little bit about the ways that collective action can help us. So when I set out to start working on this, I thought I'm going to, of course, do what anyone would do. I'm going to go to the website of the Unitarian Universalist Association, right? And I have been on the justice page of the UUA many times, and I clicked on the link with the assumption, usually when I'm going there, I'm looking for something in particular, right? I'm looking for a particular cause or a particular issue. This time I went looking for a much broader, like, how can I give an overview of this? And what I discovered was that it has grown astronomically in the last few years. The justice work of the denomination has always been central and strong, but the way it's branched out and the organization and the structure of it has grown a lot, even since I started my ministry. So in the last few years, the UUA has expanded not only the structures that it uses to support justice work for communities and congregations, it's also expanded its resources a lot. There is so much material. If you go on the website to the section entitled Justice and Inclusion, you might, like I was, be a little overwhelmed. So the first thing I'm going to tell you about this is that I made a decision, looking at it, that we are going to do more than one service on it. It's a many service topic. So over the next few months, we'll have a couple more services to dive more in detail into specific areas of this, okay? The central organizing structure, one of the central organizing structures of the UUA's justice work is called Side with Love. Anybody know where that comes from? We are standing on the side of love. That actually, the organized structure for justice in the UUA was developed and named after Jason Shelton wrote a song in memory of the shooting at Tennessee Valley UU. So the shooting happened, the song was written, the denomination decided it needed to do more, and then named its justice wing after that song. So there are things that are happening at the national level. There are some things that are happening that Westside is involved in at the state level, and then at our own congregational level. And Yetta's going to tell us a little bit about some of that in a minute. But there is so much there. What I'm going to try to do is give you a very broad overview of the general sections of different kinds of things the UUA is doing. And then we're going to talk about some core assumptions that they would ask us to consider when we think about how we do work as a community. So the section of the website called Justice and Inclusion has 12 separate subsections, okay? Each of those has its own subsections with resources and guides and workbooks and links to other organizations and all sorts of things, right? But the main question that we have to start with on any of that is, what is the best way to organize? I am assuming that if we are here in this building, we share a core belief, two core beliefs. One, that justice is something we believe in working for. People don't go to UU congregations if they don't at some level believe that that is true. That we want the world to be a better place and that we have some agency in making it happen. That's a core belief we share. And a second belief that I think most of us have, maybe consciously, maybe unconsciously, is that working together makes it better. But beyond that, we have a lot of disagreement about the best ways to do it. Right? Anybody? You know, this is one of those moments where if I were in a different denomination, I'd say, can I get an amen? Anybody ever experienced a little disagreement around the best way to get a job done in a church, especially? Yep. We have our own ideas, our own experiences, our own wisdom, and our own opinions on that topic. So it seemed to me like one of the main things we might want to do is see what the denomination suggests are best practices. They have 12 categories on that website on the first page, many of which are just descriptions of various issues. So disability and accessibility justice is one area. Economic justice, anti-racism and multiculturalism, climate and environment, immigration, LGBTQ welcome and equity, reproductive justice, and dismantling white supremacy. These are important. And if you go a little bit deeper, there's another tab that's called Take Action. And if you go there, they're going to tell you there what the current priorities out of all of that stuff, what the current priorities of the denomination are. And here's what it says. If you go to the Take Action section, they say, first, go to Side with Love. Side with Love is our central organizing body. And here are the 4 things that they are saying right now are the denomination's priorities. Climate justice, inclusive of indigenous sovereignty and climate resilience. Decriminalization, inclusive of racial justice and immigration justice. Democracy and electoral justice, which includes voting rights and electoral participation. And finally, LGBTQIA+ and gender justice, including reproductive justice. They remind us that these are intersectional, which makes it even more complicated to try to figure out how to work. For example, you can't work on environmental justice without addressing how that is related to economic and racial justice, and you can't work on immigrant issues without doing some dismantling of white supremacy culture. Like, everything hooks to everything else, right? So there's all kinds of different ways and areas and priorities. Has anybody ever felt overwhelmed about where to start besides me? It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. On any given day, there are 100 different things we could be fretting about and freaking out about and feeling like we need to address. Okay? So this is where the tab that we're going to talk about today comes in. The tab on that website list, that initial list that we're going to talk about, is called Congregational Justice Programs, which is all about how do you organize a group of people like us to do something in the face of all the things, right? So that's where we're going to dig deep today. Now, the first thing that we learn on the Congregational Justice Program page is that they believe there are 3 primary steps. And before we even go any deeper in this, I'm going to tell you, at the end of our service today, we're going to have a chance to talk a little bit about this. So this is also true for those of you who are with us virtually. So make mental notes, write on your order of service, whatever you need to do. Some of these things are going to rub you the wrong way. Some of them are going to make you go, yeah, we need to do, yeah, that's right. And some of them are going to make you go, what? What are they thinking? So take some mental notes. The 3 core steps that the Unitarian Universalist Association says we need to do as congregations to be effective doing work together is, first, get grounded in a spiritual model. I see some eyebrows. You're like, but we're Unitarian Universalists. We aren't theological. That is number 1. Get grounded in a spiritual model. That alone would give us something to talk about for weeks, if not months or years. Right? But if we really want to listen to the activists and the scholars who lead our justice movements, that is a primary step. Step number 2, build and focus your justice ministry. And third, be in partnership. So I hear in those 3 sentences, those 3 statements, all kinds of stuff that we might be able to talk about for a really long time. Get grounded in a spiritual model. What does that mean? What's that mean? What is a justice ministry? What is a justice ministry? And what about partnerships? We're not used to that very much. We're trying, but we're not used to that. So their first suggestion in all of this, besides getting connected with Side with Love, which our Green Sanctuary Committee has already done, is to follow some basic do's and don'ts. So if you go down the rabbit hole from justice and inclusion to congregational justice programs to basic steps, and you click on the first one under Get Grounded in a Spiritual Model, one of the first steps you'll see is the list of do's and don'ts for congregations. So here are some basic do's and don'ts for us to be thinking about if we want to be more serious about collective action in relationship with our larger denomination. And this is a brief summary because what I initially did was I literally copied and pasted that just the do's and don'ts section out of the website to put into my sermon text, and it was 10 pages long. So 3 services is going to be an introduction to the tip of the iceberg of all the stuff that we could do thinking about this. But so I want you to be thinking about these things. Here's the first one. Do be the change you want to see. Now, we've all heard that. Hey, we've all heard, do be the change you wish to see in the world. Here's what they say more specifically about that. Bring your highest self into this work. Demonstrate compassion, respect, and patience with everyone, even with those you disagree with significantly. Number 2, do start and or end your gatherings with a spiritual reading or prayer. This is part of centering in a spiritual framework. They say this: how does church-based social justice work differ from political work? How is it different? If a congregation is truly engaged in a social justice ministry, a natural cycle will occur. Your work will feed your spirit, and your spirit will feed your work. There is a core assumption that if we leave the spirit, however you define it, out of the work is lessened by that. Number 3, do be democratic by determining the social justice passions of the congregation as a whole. This is something we have struggled with here at Westside. If a social justice ministry is going to be successfully embraced by the entire membership of the church, if it's going to be truly collective, it's important to have a sense of which issues are the concern of the collective, not just a couple of people who are really passionate about it. Right? We all have our individual passions which we can go and engage in, but we have to make decisions about where there's enough energy in the whole congregation to get behind something as a congregation. So that leads to the next step: find your focus. If a congregation can successfully name its passions, then it's important to narrow those down to some basic issues and basic actions. The denomination suggests that any project or commitment or passion that the whole congregation is going to get behind have a minimum of 5 people organizing that work. So if we don't have 5 core people who are willing to commit and act and consistently be present and working on something, we don't have enough energy to do that thing. Next step, do provide varying types and levels of engagement. Once a congregation has found its focus, it's important to remember that different people want to do different types of activities. So there might be hands-on activities, educational activities, community-based activities, or more systemic, higher-level activities. Then, again, there's pages of examples of those things. Next step, do continually develop new leaders. Now, this is one that, as I was reading it, I thought, we really need to work on this. Social justice, this is what they say, social justice leaders need to be big picture types who can facilitate meetings and help respectfully moderate conflict. Now notice that they don't say the leaders have to be passionate about the topic. Not everyone who is passionate is equipped to lead or even wants to lead. How many of you have been in that position? You're passionate about an issue, but you don't want to be the one running the meetings or writing the agendas or managing the conflict when it comes up in the meeting, when there's an argument over something, right? And not everyone who's passionate about leading is actually trained enough to do that effectively. So the denomination offers all kinds of training, right? There's leadership training I still need. We often think, I care about this, I'm gonna go for it. But they're asking us to think about being really prepared to do that effectively. And another step along those lines is do be inclusive. Our members, they say, come from a variety of backgrounds. Some are long-term pillars of the community, and others are brand new. Some are wealthy, others struggle to make ends meet. We are youth, young adults, folks with children, folks with not children, folks with grandchildren, single, married, divorced, LGBTQIA+, straight, cis, everything imaginable. Our ethnicities vary, our cultures vary, our politics vary, and our understandings of the sacred vary. So, they have a long list of ways we need to think about being inclusive in the work we do, because the truth of the matter is that often in our justice work, we repeat the biases and the prejudices of the culture we are trying to improve, and we don't mean to. So, for example, one version of inclusion: provide childcare consistently, even if it costs money. Make it possible for people with children to participate in activities. 2, provide scholarships or sliding scale fees for things that cost money. Make it possible for everybody, regardless of economic status, to participate in the activities of the congregation. Make sure that in any gatherings you welcome new people and learn about each other. And also, this is when we see the worst in youth and young adults. Don't alienate people by making a big deal about having someone like them in the meeting. I have been in many congregations. I've just served many congregations. And in every congregation, at some point or another, somebody says, well, we need to get a youth up here. We need to get a young adult, just because we got to show that we've invited the young adults to say something. But then that puts that person on the spot. And we do that in all kinds of ways. So being mindful, being really mindful about how we practice inclusion in our practices, not just looking at other people's practices, but our practices, is really important. Do get organized, they say. That means good time management, sticking to agendas, keeping each other in the loop. And this is the last of their suggestions about being organized is really important. Deal directly with conflict when it pops up. How many of us, you do not have to raise your hand, but I will raise my hand, find conflict extremely uncomfortable? How many of us really want to be like, hey, that was really uncomfortable for me when you said that? You know what? I felt really uncomfortable when that thing happened. Or when two people start getting in an argument, how many of us want to step in and say, hey, there's something going on, let's address this? That is not something we are comfortable with. Congregations that do not deal well with conflict do not deal effectively with justice work, because justice work is inherently laden with conflict. It is inherently laden with internal conflict. I know how many people in the room have been participating in our anti-racism group? There's a bunch of us here, right? Stuff comes up. We have internal conflicts in our own selves. We have conflicts with each other. We're like, well, wait a minute, I don't know. We have conflicts with the outer world, with our families. Doing the work of justice is going to bring up conflict. And if we don't know how to deal with that directly, we will not be very effective. So there's all kinds of steps to work on that, right? That's just the beginning of the things we do want to do. I hope you're taking mental notes about which of these things make you cringe or squirm or that you love. Okay, don't. Here are the don'ts. Don't let a small group of people set your social justice agenda. Don't be judgmental. This one's hard. Don't be judgmental. Now, they describe this in a particular way. We often think of ourselves as very tolerant, except we're not very tolerant of the things we're not very tolerant of. And we feel extremely justified in being intolerant of the things we think are intolerant. Is that fair? Yeah. So, one of the things that Unitarian Universalists are notorious for is well-intentioned blaming, shaming, and judging. Can anybody, that would be an amen moment in another, right? We have really good intentioned shaming, blaming, and judging, right? We like to catch people in politically incorrect acts. We like to catch each other in making mistakes, and we certainly like to catch people outside our ranks in those things. But this is a problem. We need a better way to deal with this. Okay, don't say that you're working in the name of the church when you're not. I haven't seen a lot of this at Westside, but I have certainly seen it in other congregations where someone who's got a passion and they're all about it and they're out doing something in public and they start talking about it as if the whole, because they attend the congregation, as if the whole congregation is behind that thing when it has not been agreed upon by the congregation. So that's something we have to be careful about. This one's really tricky. Don't allow burnout to infect your work. Y'all know who we're talking about, all of us. If it's not feeding your soul, don't do it. Social justice work should add to your enjoyment in life. It should stimulate you and bring you a sense of deep well-being. If you feel depleted, you are either taking on too much or doing something that isn't the right task for you. I am betting that if I were to say, what is the thing that made you most uncomfortable or made you go, I don't know, for many of us, that would be the thing. It counters a core assumption in us. Right? That the work that's the most important is the part that we like, it makes us feel the most blah. Conflict doesn't have to make us feel blah. So there's a slight difference here. We can embrace the discomfort of conflict, and that's a different kind of blah than I'm exhausted, I'm depleted, I can't do this, I'm overwhelmed, I got nothing left. Too many of us get in that place. I know UUs who are very active leaders in our denomination who have had major physical health breakdowns because of doing too much activism work. Okay? Related to that, don't do something because, quote, if I don't do it, nobody else will. If nobody else is doing it, it's likely, one, that the congregation doesn't have enough energy to do it, and two, if you're passionate about it, maybe that's something you need to do independently, but if it's not for the congregation, it's not for the congregation. Sometimes we have a hard time letting that happen. Finally, don't give up. It's not easy to change patterns. It's not easy to change the world. It's not easy to change ourselves. And don't be afraid to ask for help. So, oh, that's a lot. Even listening to the list makes me more tired. Right? Like it's one thing to say, all right, we're gonna do this particular project. I can get my energy behind that. But when I think about all these ideas about doing it well, I can feel more overwhelmed. Here's my main takeaway from that. When we look at the world and we see all the things going wrong, all the things that are not working, all the suffering that is happening, our first response is to jump in and try to stop, fix, or change it. That's our instinctive response. But the wisdom of activists and scholars and theologians and wise elders and people who've been thinking about this stuff for a long time, one of their primary pieces of advice is stop, pause, take a breath, and think carefully before jumping in to take action. Don't just leap in to take the first action. That's partly about our nervous systems. We are going to respond with fight or flight responses as our instinctive first response. And unfortunately, those frequently lead us into more trouble. So the primary advice that they're giving us here is think about doing this well. Make measured choices. Come together as a community and think about it. Share your thoughts so that when you do take action, it is centralized, it is well supported, it is agreed upon, and there's a collective sense of well-being underneath it. When we do that, when we do the inner work first and then do the outer work is much more effective. So I want to tell you about our local organization that is doing just that. So for a number of years, we have been trying in the state of Tennessee to organize all the congregations to do justice work together. Because, that makes sense, right? Doesn't it make sense that, a bunch of tiny little congregations and a couple of big ones, like we'd all be more effective if we worked together? There have been efforts to organize a state collective network going on since I started here at Westside. Jerry Thornton probably will remember years ago the organization that he and some of the folks from Tennessee Valley and Foothills were working to organize. They tried for a few years to come up with an organization that was a state action network. That particular effort, which was, I believe, the third attempt, from what more senior ministers in the region tell me, was the third attempt to do that organizing. Fortunately, nobody gave up. Nobody gave up. That particular attempt didn't work out. That was during the first half of my ministry here. Recently, we're having a much more successful effort to do this. So there is a new organization. Really got kicked off by, some of you will know Mark Mahundro, who is a member at Tennessee Valley. He's actually on the staff at Tennessee Valley and was an activist for many, many years before that. Mark, a couple of years ago, started out organizing some local action, started calling in other congregations, and now that organization is becoming solidified. It has a fantastic name. It's called Toucan, Tennessee UU Collective Action Network, okay? And Mary Frances Milligan and Curtis Dush from our congregation are on the existing steering committee for that organization, which has representation from most of the congregations in the state. One of the changes that they are working on right now is actually specifically and consciously reaching out to congregations to get congregational support of it, which is something that the clergy in the area said, hey, we think this, if you do this time, it will be more successful. Don't just do it with individuals, but get the congregations to raise their hands and sign up. So they are currently working on formalizing their structure and creating a statement that will come to the congregations to introduce themselves to the congregation. We'll be getting that soon. Curtis is on our board of trustees and tells me that at the next board meeting they will hopefully have a version of that for us. So we're going to be coming to you, the congregation, to say, hey, do we collectively want to support this state action network? So that's at the state level. And here in our local level, our Green Sanctuary Committee has been working with one of the branches of the UUA, the Green Sanctuary Program, on environmental issues connected with Side with Love. So Yetta's going to give us an update. I believe there's actually a PowerPoint, right? That's how organized we are. So Yetta and Charlie and the members of the Green Sanctuary Committee have been working on this, and Yetta's going to give us an update on what our work in connection with that larger program is doing.
Thank you, Carol. So this is actually a presentation that we put together for the UUA Green Sanctuary Initiative, and they had I guess it's called a revival, where we had a workshop and all the various congregations that are going through the certification process presented their progress. And it was really interesting to see what the various congregations were doing. And it made me really proud to see all the things that we have done as such a small congregation. We put together a congregational profile, an opportunity assessment, an action plan, and a progress report. All that's kind of bureaucratic, but it's an important process to try to understand where we want to go with this. One of the main goals of this initiative is to reduce our carbon footprint and to make our congregation and the wider community more aware of ways that we can try to fight against climate warming. So we have a committee of about 10 people. Can we go back one? There we go. You can see a picture of one of our Zoom meetings. And we would welcome more people because we need more energy in our committee. We have a lot of energy, but more is always good. And we submitted our action plan and 3 or 4 progress reports so far. We can go to the next slide, I guess. We have had a number of different initiatives, like the plastic reduction initiative, flower initiative, to try to produce our own flowers on our property or bring them from home rather than purchasing them from air-conditioned planes flying to florists from around the world, and thereby reducing our carbon footprint. We had a tree planting initiative that we're going to have again this year, headed by Farragut. And we have some education activities that have been going on and collaborations with Tennessee Interfaith Power and Light, with the Sierra Club, especially because some of us are very involved, including the Thorntons and Craig. And we hope to get more involved with the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. We want to go to the next slide. I think some of you were probably involved in the plastic-free initiative because a lot of the plastic that we buy is made, or all of it, probably most of it, is made from fossil fuels, and it's a pretty big part of our, we think about the heating oil and gas and other sources of electricity that we use, but in fact, plastic is a big part of our carbon footprint. So this initiative also helps us to protect habitat because that plastic gets into the wastewater and ends up harming aquatic life. I guess Brad's trying to get me to hurry up, so I'm going to just skip forward and finish up. You can see the initiatives that he's showing. And as I said, I welcome all of you to become more involved with you. We meet once a month and at various activities. And recently we had a lot of fun during the winter since we couldn't be out there working on the landscape or doing other things outside. We had a game night last weekend or a few days ago, and we also went down to visit Knoxville. So that was a lot of fun. Thank you very much. Is there anything else I was supposed to say?
No, that's okay. So, yay to the Green Sanctuary Committee. And one of the things that happened at the beginning of the Green Sanctuary Committee starting to do their work was the group had to have a collective discussion about whether or not they wanted to collaborate with the UUA's larger Green Sanctuary program. Like, that was, at the beginning, a core conversation, whether or not to participate in that larger structure, which required a lot of bureaucratic paperwork, but also gave us the opportunity to be involved at a higher level with some other congregations and things like that. So there are some benefits. There are some challenges to doing things with the denomination, but there are some benefits to it. There's also always lots of opportunities to get engaged here. So just a reminder about some of our other justice and generosity stuff. And in a minute, I'm going to have Elizabeth Corbett come up and tell us about one of the upcoming ones. But you can always contribute to Westside by contributing to the institution that's already doing this work. I always say this, there's a QR code, there's a box in the back of the room with a QR code. You can just make a contribution to the institution financially, and that helps us get more done. You can contribute your time just to helping us get things done in this building. And you can contribute specifically to particular programs that we're working on, like Green Sanctuary. Many of you were here last week where we had a representative, Khalil White, from the Bottom, who is our current Justice and Generosity partner. And Khalil told us a little bit what's going on at the Bottom and things that we can support there. I also want you to know that I had a conversation with Khalil Khalil. One of the things we're going to be doing later in the spring is we're going to be having Khalil come out, and she is going to do a workshop for us on how not to do things with the white savior complex as part of our anti-racism work, how to get rid of the white savior complex as part of our anti-racism work. So we'll be letting you know about that. Participating in that is a good way to work on these things. And as always, we have more partnerships throughout the year. So Elizabeth is going to give us an update also on our Family Promise Partnership.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Corbett. I'm Programs and Membership Chair. And to echo what Carol said, I was able to see the YouTube video of last week's service with Khalil, and if you didn't get a chance to see it or weren't here, I highly recommend you tune into that, because all of the things going on at the bottom are just incredible, and I'm really excited that we've chosen to partner with them and that she'll be coming back to help us with how not to be a white savior. But today I'm also pleased to announce that the board at its recent meeting approved Westside's involvement with Family Promise as a support church with First Farragut United Methodist Church. Several years ago, before COVID, some of you may remember Westside was a host church, and we worked with Family Promise, which is a local organization that works with unhoused families. And for 4 times a year, we had families here in our church, and it was our responsibility to feed them dinner and spend the night and provide some activities for children who were in the program. Well, we have a much reduced role with being a support church, and we will be working with First Farragut to provide dinner and spend the night on Monday, April 21st, which is the first time that they will be hosting. And some of you have signed up before, which is great. I am here today if you have more questions, and I will also have some information coming up in the newsletter on Wednesday about how you can sign up to either provide dinner or prepare dinner, be there to serve dinner, or spend the night. So that'll be coming in the newsletter on Wednesday and for the next few weeks before April 21st. I think this is a great program, and I'm really excited about Westside's involvement with it.
Okay, now we're just going to take a few minutes. Let's see, let's get our microphone. Do you want to be that? Yeah. So this is your chance. If you're like, but, or, whoa, I love that. This is your chance. Do you have questions, thoughts, or responses to these ideas? About ways to organize our congregation to do justice work. I love the faces. Alice.
I'm saying this one in part to interest people in the poetry group. We could focus our topics around our things that we want to do. Need to get coordinated with that. We don't have many members yet, and if you need my email address, I can give that to you. The March issue, first issue to get us moving for March, should be out this week, and the follow-up in a couple of weeks, and then the final at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So, we take topics, we can build around that.
Yeah. So that's a good point. So the point there is that justice work does not all have to be like going and fixing something. It can be just reflecting on topics, creating art on topics, being focused on the issues. That's valid. Mary Frances?
Oh, thank you. So is there going to, like, should we organize a congressional survey or something like that to gauge what people's priorities are?
So you mean a congregational rather than congressional? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I want to ask the Congress what they think
I think
about
we do.
stuff.
No comment. Yeah.
But
okay.
yeah, I knew what you meant. But I would love to ask them their opinions in some way. But yeah, so here's the challenge about congregational surveys. Here's the challenge about congregational surveys. Frequently people do them, and we could try it, but people don't answer them. Yeah. Frequently we do a congregational survey and we get like 10 answers. Mm-hmm. And then the problem is those tend to get our decisions made for us, and they're just the 12 people who happen to care enough to answer this survey. So that for justice and generosity point 2.0 in a few weeks, hopefully we can come up with some strategies. Maybe it'll be a questionnaire that you answer during this service or something like that.
That's what I'm saying. If there's a different or more equitable way to get engagement, engage interest, then me, I like a survey. So but whatever, maybe not everyone does, or maybe not everyone has energy. So whatever, we can talk about that.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Like, how do you get the information? How do we get people's opinions? And also, not everybody wants to express their opinion necessarily. Yeah, Anna.
Hey, how about a suggestion box at the back of the church where people can reflect on this and then drop a suggestion?
So yes, that's another way we can gather information. Now, let me just make a point, which is I love Unitarian Universalists because the first thing we want to do is figure out what to do. But the core question that I would really love to hear about from you today is, was there something in what I said today that made you uncomfortable? Or that you found hard to hear, or that raised a question for you? Because what we're trying to do is reflect first and take action later. So I'm curious about that, but not to in any way say it's bad to take those actions. We should do that. But I'm curious what made you uncomfortable about that model. So Elizabeth and then Bridget.
Okay. I would say the thing that caught my attention, kind of a red flag, uncomfortable part was, I think it was the first do of when you're meeting in committee, whenever you get together, you're starting something to ground yourself in spiritual mode. It's like, we got some people here that are not spiritual. It's like, how is that going to work? The atheists, the agnostics, the different flavors of religion, how do we start an effort, a meeting, a committee meeting with that grounding when not everybody's on the same page?
Yeah. Bridget?
Yeah, that's what triggered me, was that, because there's plenty of atheists that have more morals than all these Christians right now. And that really pisses me off, because the atheists have more morals. And so that the fact that there has to be a way that an atheist, I hate the fact that we always, and I lead spiritual practices, but the fact you don't, that part aggravates me, because, and I don't even know how to express it, because they want it to be, oh, we're going to get our strength from God. That's what that kind of means.
That's what you heard, yeah.
We can't do anything without having a God to support us or to fall back on.
So I can tell you for sure that the Unitarian Universalist Association does not mean God at all. Not at all.
That's what I hear, is that we can't have strength without having a God to back us.
So that's not what they mean.
That triggers me.
Yep. So that's important. Because in the work of doing justice, our passions are involved, and we will get triggered and have misunderstandings. So Bridget's trigger is they must mean God. When they don't, But we have to stop long enough to address that, because the minute that happens, now Bridget is offline. She is not on the freeway anymore with us. She has just left the road. She's not participating anymore. Judy.
So as one of the leading atheists in this church, why do I even belong to this church? Because it respects everybody's beliefs and that we're all different. So to lead a meeting off with some kind of something that's meaningful to some of the people, but maybe not me, I'm happy that they are getting something from it, because we're all in this together.
Okay. So Anna. Let's hear Anna.
I can talk loud.
No, so if it's on the that's an accessibility thing. This is one of their inclusion things. If it's on the microphone, it goes into the sound system and they can hear it on YouTube.
All righty. Well, I believe spirituality means different things to different people. And as a UU, I believe everyone has a right to those beliefs. Spirituality does not necessarily mean God.
Right.
To me, personally, it means love and kindness.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm a UU, because we accept each other's beliefs. That's why Bill and I are here.
So that when I said, here, I'll just read you the first 3 steps of a congregation, and I said we could do a long time on this one, that's why I said it. Because let me reread, I'm going to just reread that sentence one more time. We'll have a whole service on this one. How does church-based social justice work differ from political work? If we can't get our brains around that core question first, we will have a hard time proceeding. Because we're not we're sort of a corporation. We do have a corporate kind of identity, but we don't have our primary motivation as an institution is not to make money. Okay, so we don't have that. Our primary motivation as a congregation is not political action. That is not why Westside exists. It is one of the things we do, but it is not our purpose. Our purpose is our shared values. So what I hear the Unitarian Universalist Association saying is we must connect deeply to our deepest shared ethical and moral values as the foundation of every action we do. That was a lot of words, but how does that sound as distinct from a religious practice or a spiritual statement? So I'll throw out there, what is it that we do every single service that is a spiritual practice?
Light the chalice.
We light the chalice. We share that with every single UU denomination in the world, pretty much. So a spiritual centering practice might simply be, we light a chalice, we take 5 deep breaths together. Anything else in just the next couple of minutes before we end, anything else besides that, which we will talk about probably more. Oh, and yeah, Barry and then Linda, something online? Okay.
I'm in favor of everything we've talked about. We have tried over the years to do social justice work in the congregation here. Right now we have the Justice and Generosity project, and there is a Justice and Generosity kind of committee, subcommittee. Previously we've had social justice committees. I think from experience with all of that, I think it's very important to have this a congregational activity, not, there may be a committee or a small group that is sort of coordinating it, but it's got to have congregational-wide, excuse me.
Seems to me that we wish that a
it's
larger
contagious.
governmental structure would listen to these do's and don'ts, perhaps.
But we need to do this as a congregation. Otherwise, the few people that are if you concentrate on a few people, it's not going to represent the congregation, for one thing, and those people are just going to get worn out completely.
Yeah.
The other thing is even though if we do it as a congregation, we are still a fairly small congregation, and we can't do everything. So we have to agree on something we're going to focus on, an area that we're going to focus on, in my opinion. We can't. I remember we had an interim minister, Mary Moore, some years ago, who talked about something similar to this, and I remember her telling a story about some church in a community she had served that became the peanut butter church. They would provide, out of all the things they could do, this was one thing that they focused on, that they could make sure for all the food pantries and so forth that they had plenty of peanut butter. That's just one, that's kind of a silly example. We need to pick our area and do that, and other people are going to have different passions, which they can pursue, but as a congregation, we probably can't do all of it.
Yeah, yeah. And Linda has one from the online responses.
Yeah, actually, it's Darla and Curtis who are involved in Toucan, wanted to let people know there is a general meeting of Toucan. It's on Wednesday. No, what am I looking up the date here? I had it all here. Hold on.
17th? Oh, the 15th.
15th. The 15th at TVUUC.
Saturday the 15th at TVUUC. We'll post it. We'll put it on the website, and we can put it in the newsletter. So that's something that we can all get involved in. Okay. So let us all take a big deep breath.
I had it all lined up.
So let's take a deep breath. Yetta, did you have any closing readings or anything? I'm good. We'll do it. We'll do it with. So let's all take a deep breath, and let's return to that question I asked you when I invited the bowl to sound. What is most important to you? What's our core value? Anything we do as an action in the world is fueled best by our core love. We talk about at the center of Unitarian Universalism is liberating love to transform the world. The only fuel that will sustain us is that love, is that sense of well-being and joy inside ourselves. Okay? Fear is a terrible fuel source. It's a terrible fuel source. It's a very short-term burst of fight or flight response, but it is not a good long-term fuel source for real collective, long-term, sustainable action. So our task in front of us, the Green Sanctuary Committee has demonstrated there's a large enough group of people with a long enough term commitment that love taking care of the environment, that was sustainable and continues to be sustainable. There are other things happening. We have sustained family promise over a long period of time in different ways. Charlie has done an excellent job sustaining the VITA economic justice program here. There are programs here that have that deep, consistent value and love underneath them. Our job isn't to fix everything, it's to discover where we have enough shared love and commitment that we then have the fuel to do something. So, I know it's cold and flu season. I'm going to invite you to stand. I'm not going to tell you to hold hands, but I know some of you are going to do it anyway, if you like to, but you do not have to. Do it if you like to. But look at other people. Look at other people. Look at the people around you. Hold hands if you want to. But make contact with the people. Yeah, the elbow thing works. Yeah. Make contact. Make contact with your eyes, with your body, with your heart. We are all different. We all have different triggers. We all have different passions. We all have different beliefs about what the most important things are. Our strength comes from finding what we have in common. So let us be committed to that, to finding what we share and focusing on it, and to listening openly and with interest and curiosity to our differences. Let's do that first so that any actions we take have a lot of fuel behind them. I hope that you will stay with us for Potluck, which is a lot of good fuel, and that you will go into this day and into this week feeling renewed and restored by being part of this community. Go in peace and go in passion.
you.